question. How long does forgiveness take? And so we just kind of wanted to unpack that question just a little bit. Walking through forgiveness. Some of y'all may have seen that video. You want to talk a little more about that?
Yeah, so it was the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air 30-year reunion, and within that, we were both kids of that, so it was kind of near and dear to us. But in that, there was a part of that special where Will and the first Aunt Viv actually had a conversation. They had been at odds for nearly 27 years in reference to her leaving the show. And we watched that, and there were a lot of different things from a communication perspective that were really intriguing to us, of things that you could learn as it relates to your own marriage, on forgiveness, on communication, on how you can get past something that has been hurting you for years. And so we're going to play the video so that you can see it, and then afterwards we're going to point out some things and talk about some things that may help you in your relationship as it relates to communication and forgiveness.
I was 21 years old.
Yeah.
You know,
I know. I know.
Everything was a threat to me.
Why was I a threat?
Not you, the world. I was so driven by fear and jokes and comedy and all of that.
Yeah, you were live. You were live. You were live.
You know.
But what you didn't realize either, that I was going through a lot at home.
Mm-hmm. Right.
You didn't know. You guys didn't know. Very abusive marriage.
You know, I have children.
Yeah.
I've been divorced and got a second marriage, and I can see now the level of pain and the level of struggle that it was for you just to show up every day. And then...
But you took all that away from me.
Mm-hmm.
With your words. You know, words can kill.
Mm-hmm.
But I lost everything. Reputation, everything. And I understand you were able to move forward, but you know those words, calling a Black woman difficult in Hollywood is the kiss of death. It's the kiss of death, and it's hard enough being a dark-skinned Black woman in this business. But I felt it was necessary for us to finally move forward.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry that I have blasted you to pieces.
No, it is so, first of all, thank you for sharing that with me. Like, I didn't know that. When I look back now, it's, you know, it's obvious that you were having a hard time, and I felt like you hated me. I could not do a 30-year celebration of this show and not celebrate you. Celebrate your contribution to this show, celebrate your contribution to my life, you know, and...
I mean, you.
The person I want to be is someone who protects you, not someone that unleashes dogs on you. And however...
I appreciate that.
You know, it's...
I appreciate that. I have to say, after 27 years, being here today and having the conversation that Will and I had together, it's healing. I was watching the dance episode. I don't know if it's real. I feel like this is a dream. I didn't come here to have animosity. I came here to resolve, because it's time. You still feel like...
Like I'm little?
Yeah. Yes.
You still my Aunt Viv. You still my Aunt Viv.
You too. It's so weird. You know, we've said such hateful things about each other publicly. And I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
And I'm sorry.
Okay, so that's a pretty powerful video. I asked a question at the very beginning before we showed you that one about how long does forgiveness take. Now, in that situation, it took, what, 27 years, I think she said, 27 years for them to be able to get in the same room to sit down and talk to one another. And so to answer that question, it's a tough question to answer because it involves two people's free will, right? And so in order for there to be true forgiveness, both parties have to be willing to forgive, right? Because you can be violated or something happen in a situation and you not be willing to forgive that person. And the person who did something to you could be carrying some unforgiveness too, which is why they hurt you. And so now we got a vicious cycle of unforgiveness, destroying a relationship and choking out a relationship that was probably good at some point. You know, I imagine those two actors probably had a really good relationship and it went south. But somebody had to break the ice.
The other thing that I saw of is just for that 27 years, the pain, even him, you know, at this point, after all that time and the things that he said of, you know, now I'm a father, now I'm a husband, and I'm divorced, and I would never want to cause you that much pain. But again, he was 21 years old. He said he was young. He was operating out of fear. And that's one of the biggest things that we see for husbands and wives is operating out of fear, saying things out of fear, making choices out of fear.
Yeah, and we all have fears. We all have stuff that has happened to us or something that may happen because you're just focused on what may happen. It may not be that you had any major traumatic issues, but it could be you fear losing your house or losing your spouse or whatever. People have real fears.
Even in this situation where he said he was riddled with fear, and her question, which I loved, is how was I a threat to you? Or he said it wasn't even her, it was everybody, it was society. But it was great in a communication aspect of getting clarity on what did I do then to be a threat to you, or what was I to make you say those things about me, and trying to get to the root of that and understanding. So I think that too was a great point of communication, of just bringing clarity to that. And so that's something that I wanted to bring up for you in your relationships when you are talking, and being clear and asking those probing questions on how she was trying to get understanding on what did she do to be a threat to him.
Yeah, and that's good. And let's talk about numbers, because I asked the question, how long does it take to forgive? It took them 27 years, but it doesn't have to be that long. It can be shorter. And some of you are walking around longer than 27 years with some unforgiveness because you haven't done what they did. You haven't come and sat down with the other party to really talk it out, to really hear their perspective and really share your perspective. A lot of times we just shut down. We let one thing happen over, you know, a holiday dinner or something like that, or you've just destroyed a relationship. Because again, what do I always say? If you want to make a relationship grow, you ramp up the communication. That's whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, you ramp up that communication. And if you want to destroy a relationship, you stop the communication. And when you walk in unforgiveness, and when you allow unforgiveness to kind of settle in on your heart, and you stop communicating, you take your ball and go home, that relationship is done. It's how long does forgiveness take? It's up to you. It's up to you. Because I will tell you, in that video, they took how long? Maybe we saw a 15-minute clip, maybe, or a 10-minute clip, 4-minute clip rather. And so you saw a short clip. We don't know how long the entire conversation was, but within 4 minutes, at least, at a minimum, they were able to come together and talk things out and get on the same page and let there be healing. You could feel the genuineness that came through just in the video. You could tell that was real. I don't believe they were acting. It really happened. And so what if they had done that 2 years into that whole ordeal? What if they had done it 2 days into that ordeal when she first got fired? What if they had fired? What if they had a conversation 2 days afterwards? How much different will both of their lives have been because of that incident? There's so much power and so many things that could happen, so many possibilities if you just take the time to sit down with your spouse and just be transparent. Don't avoid it. Don't have the ostrich mentality and stick your head in the sand and not wanting to deal with the issue. I know you don't like conflict. We don't love conflict, but we've begun to learn to get used to conflict because it's necessary. In order for there to be understanding, you have to walk through some misunderstandings. okay? Because misunderstandings will happen no matter what you do, no matter how compatible you are. And if you're sitting there saying, we don't have misunderstandings, you will have misunderstandings. Now, they don't have to be monumental or earth-shattering.
The biggest things that I saw with both of them, which was important, was the apology aspect. They both apologized for the part that they played. And that's one thing that you can learn in relationships and conflict, that everybody plays a part in it. And an apology is necessary if you want to move the situation and the relationship forward.
Yeah, it just that pride, and sometimes in relationships, there's always at least one party who's very prideful and doesn't want to take ownership or admit fault, doesn't want to say I'm sorry. They don't want to show weakness for whatever reason, and that can, in and of itself, can be damaging. That in and of itself can destroy things, because that person doesn't feel like they've been heard. They don't feel validated when you bring them something. If you say, well, I didn't do that. I didn't. That was a good thing for them both to do, to work towards forgiveness and understanding and owning what they did, because she went out and she basically trashed him, over the years. I remember seeing a couple of those videos, and I'm like, wow, that's some serious stuff right there.
But that was out of her pain. Right. I mean, that was just out of, everything that she had lost and the potential she had with that show. And she's watching it year after year being a success and thinking about that could have been me, or that should have been me. That should have been me. So, she was riddled with hurt and pain. And even in the end of the clip, she said she needed healing, and she got resolved from that. And I want you to understand that, husbands and wives, that you can't put your head in the sand, that there is some sort of closure and moving forward and getting over something and healing, and that can come just with an apology. Like she said, in 4 or 5 minutes, however long that conversation was, that they genuinely had healing. They were laughing and they were smiling and hugging towards the end of that. So you can get over whatever it is, but it just takes both parties willing to humble themselves, to apologize. The other thing that was a key thing would have been, he said, thank you for sharing with me. Instead of making excuses for behaviors, they said, okay, thank you for sharing. I appreciate now knowing that information. And that's something that you can implement when you're communicating with your spouse as well, is thanking them for sharing something with you that you didn't know.
And it was interesting, once they did that, they were able to, like you said, they were able to laugh and talk and joke, and they went right back to where they were. They went right back to that day before she got fired or whatever, the good things that were happening in their relationship, because they had history, as they say. They had some relational equity that was still there, even though they had locked it down for a while, 27 years, they weren't talking. As soon as they did that, as soon as they moved towards the path of understanding, just like that, they were back where they needed to be. That's what we want you to realize. So a lot of you all are facing situations, you're thinking your spouse is the devil, you're thinking the worst situation, you're capitalizing on all the bad stuff because you're hurting, you got that unforgiveness, but don't throw away that relationship that you had prior to the offense, or prior to whatever you're struggling with right now, because it could be the love of your life. In a lot of cases, it's the love of your life, and is it worth throwing it away for whatever it is?
Or waiting 27 years.
Yeah.
I mean, how many people, older people, do we know that have regrets, once they get older? Don't wait, 10, 15, 20 years and then regret the time that you just let it go. You can't get that time back. And the pain that you're causing your spouse by not talking and shutting them out and just not conversing about it is really doing damage internally for them. Even though you could be living in the same house, doing the same things, that they're really hurting, and a piece of them is dying on the inside just because you guys don't want to have an honest conversation.
And the same thing with you. If you're the one that's holding the unforgiveness, you're struggling on the inside too. There are things that there are even been studies that have done it, that have shown that people who hold unforgiveness have physiological reactions in their bodies, and so you may have health issues. You think, oh, it's just this, or I need to exercise more. It could be that unforgiveness that you're holding. It could be that bitterness. We want you guys to think about that. How long does forgiveness take? It's up to you to determine how long it takes, and it could just be a simple 2-minute phone call to start that process. And so we want you to really think about and consider what your part is with bringing forth forgiveness in your relationships.
All right, and if you need help going through that, if you need help with the conversation or even talking or having a mediator there, we're here. That's what we do. We help you get through that. We help you have those difficult conversations and work to a place of moving forward in your relationship. So send us a DM, email, get in contact with us. We'll be more than happy to help you get to a place where you can live your best life.
All right, take care, guys.
Bye-bye.